October 27, 2025. Ontario's housing sector issued an emergency declaration. Ontario is facing a housing emergency. Projects are stalling, builders are canceling developments, and families are being priced out of the market. The province recorded its highest September inventory in over a decade, 42,545 new listings flooding a market that can't absorb them. Average home prices have fallen 2.7% year over year, making Ontario the only Canadian province in decline. But behind these market corrections lies a deeper problem few are talking about. The numbers tell a story of systematic collapse across Ontario's major population centers. In Brampton, average home prices have crashed 10.3% year over year to $969,501. Even Toronto, the economic engine of Canada, shows a 2.1% decline to $1,089,980. This isn't a gentle market correction. It's a coordinated retreat across the Greater Toronto Area. The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, the federal government's own housing agency, now officially predicts home prices will fall 2% nationally in 2025, with larger drops in Ontario and British Columbia. When government agencies that typically maintain optimistic forecasts begin predicting significant declines, markets pay attention. The Bank of Canada has cut interest rates multiple times since June 2024, yet Ontario remains the only province unable to respond positively to monetary stimulus. Active listings have exploded to 74,201 units, representing a 13% increase year over year and the highest September level in over a decade. Months of inventory have climbed to 5.2, nearly double the long-term average of 3.1 months, signaling a fundamental shift from sellers to buyers' market conditions. The scale of Ontario's housing market breakdown becomes clear when examining regional performance data from September 2025. Central Ontario, anchored by Toronto, shows an average home price of $1,070,950, down 4.4% year over year. This region, containing Canada's largest metropolitan area, represents the steepest price decline among major Canadian markets. Northeastern Ontario leads provincial declines with an 8.3% year-over-year drop, bringing average prices to $760,938. Only Eastern Ontario, bolstered by Ottawa's government sector employment, shows resilience with a modest 0.7% gain to $629,273. The pre-construction market reveals even more alarming trends. Toronto's condo pre-sales have collapsed 58% since 2021, with only 319 sales recorded in Q3 2025, the lowest quarterly total in 35 years. Active pre-construction listings exceed 32,000 units, creating an unprecedented supply overhang that threatens future pricing stability. Sales to new listings ratios across major Ontario markets confirm buyers' market conditions. Toronto sits at 29%, Hamilton at 34%, Ottawa at 38%, all well below the 60% threshold typically associated with balanced market conditions. By comparison, many other Canadian provinces maintain sellers' market ratios above 60%, highlighting Ontario's unique distress. Construction data from Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation shows housing starts projected to decline from 245,367 units in 2024 to between 224,948 and 237,834 units in 2025. Multi-unit construction, crucial for rental supply, bears the largest decline as developers cite economic uncertainty, regulatory challenges, and financing constraints. The provincial government's own housing targets reveal policy failure. Ontario previously committed to building 1.5 million homes over 10 years, 150,000 annually. Current construction trends suggest the province will miss these targets by significant margins, with Housing Minister Rob Flack becoming increasingly non-committal about timeline feasibility. Interest rate sensitivity analysis shows Ontario markets failing to respond to Bank of Canada cuts from 5.0% to 3.75% between June 2024 and October 2025. This suggests underlying affordability issues beyond monetary policy, including trade uncertainty, unemployment concerns, and demographic shifts affecting buyer confidence across the Greater Toronto Area and surrounding regions. Sarah Chen sits at her kitchen table in Mississauga, laptop open to MLS listings that seem to refresh hourly with price reductions. As a marketing manager earning $120,000 down payment, sufficient for a $969,501 in her area, I watch listings drop $15,000 2 weeks later, Sarah explains, scrolling through her saved searches. But even with these drops, I'm still priced out. My mortgage pre-approval tops out at $580,000, and there's nothing available at that price point within reasonable commuting distance. Across the province in Hamilton, construction foreman Michael Rodriguez faces a different crisis. His employer, a mid-sized residential builder, has canceled 3 planned developments since August 2025, laying off 45 workers, including Michael's crew of 8 trades professionals. His own home, purchased in 2022 for $775,000. 20 years in construction, and I've never seen confidence disappear this quickly, Michael says, reviewing job applications on his home computer. Builders are sitting on land they can't develop profitably. Buyers can't qualify for mortgages even with price drops. The whole system feels broken. Jennifer Park, a rental property owner in Toronto, represents the investor class caught between policy uncertainty and market forces. Her 2-bedroom condo purchased as an investment in 2021 for $715,000. Monthly rental income of $3,200 carrying costs, creating a negative cash flow of $400 monthly. Premier Doug Ford's government response reveals the political pressure surrounding Ontario's housing crisis. On October 27, 2025, the entire provincial housing sector, builders, realtors, business groups, trade associations, and rental providers, issued an unprecedented joint statement declaring Ontario is facing a housing emergency. The coalition demanded bold, coordinated action from all government levels, warning that Ontario's housing sector, supporting 1.2 million jobs and contributing $143 billion to GDP, faces systematic collapse. This unified industry response represents the first time such diverse stakeholders have jointly challenged government policy. Ford's administration initially proposed consultations that could have ended rent control and indefinite lease protections, but reversed course within days after receiving over 23,000 constituent emails opposing the measures. Housing Minister Rob Flack announced the policy reversal via social media, stating, "Now is not the time to consider changes to this system." The government's Bill 60, dubbed the Fighting Delays Building Faster Act 2025, continues moving forward despite the rent control reversal. The legislation includes measures to accelerate landlord and tenant board processes, though critics argue it favors landlords by requiring tenants to pay 50% of disputed amounts before filing counterclaims. Federal responses have focused on potential HST removal for new home construction. Though industry experts warn the policy, uncertainty has frozen development decisions pending final announcement details. Ontario's housing market collapse represents a synchronized shock across multiple interconnected systems that typically operate independently. The construction industry faces a feedback loop where declining sales reduce builder confidence, leading to project cancellations that decrease employment, further reducing buyer demand. This mechanical breakdown reflects deeper structural issues within Ontario's economic framework. The province's economy historically relied on population growth driving housing demand, supported by immigration and interprovincial migration. However, federal immigration policy uncertainty, combined with affordability barriers, has disrupted this foundational assumption. The financial system amplifies these pressures through risk assessment protocols. Banks have tightened lending standards despite central bank rate cuts, creating a paradox where monetary easing fails to stimulate borrowing. Mortgage stress tests, designed to prevent 2008-style crashes, now restrict qualified buyers even as prices decline. Regulatory complexity creates additional systematic drag. Development charges, Municipal approval processes and zoning restrictions increase construction timelines from 18 months to over 3 years in major markets. These delays compound financing costs, forcing developers to absorb carrying costs that reduce project profitability below viable thresholds. The rental market experiences parallel systematic breakdown. Rent control policies intended to protect tenants reduce incentives for new rental construction. This creates artificial scarcity that drives up market rents for uncontrolled units, ironically harming the population rent control aims to protect. Trade policy uncertainty adds external systematic pressure. Potential tariffs on Canadian lumber and construction materials create cost uncertainty that prevents accurate project budgeting. Developers defer decisions pending trade resolution, reducing construction activity precisely when government policy encourages increased supply. Labor market dynamics complete the systematic breakdown. Construction unemployment increases as projects cancel, reducing consumer spending power across the broader economy. This creates deflationary pressure that validates conservative buyer behavior, perpetuating the downturn cycle. The rental market experiences parallel systematic breakdown. Rent control policies, intended to protect tenants, reduce incentives for new rental construction. This creates artificial scarcity that drives up market rents for uncontrolled units, ironically harming the population rent control aims to protect. Trade policy uncertainty adds external systematic pressure. Potential tariffs on Canadian lumber and construction materials create cost uncertainty that prevents accurate project budgeting. Developers defer decisions pending trade resolution, reducing construction activity precisely when government policy encourages increased supply. Labor market dynamics complete the systematic breakdown. Construction unemployment increases as projects cancel, reducing consumer spending power across the broader economy. This creates deflationary pressure that validates conservative buyer behavior, perpetuating the downturn cycle. Ontario's housing market trajectory depends on several converging factors that remain unresolved entering 2026. Federal immigration policy decisions will determine population growth rates that historically drive housing demand. Trade policy resolution affects construction cost, certainty required for development planning. Provincial policy coordination with federal initiatives becomes critical. The proposed HST removal for new homes could stimulate construction if combined with provincial regulatory streamlining. However, policy uncertainty currently freezes development decisions as builders await final program details. Economic recession probability affects employment levels that support mortgage qualification. CMHC forecasts suggest modest recession risk from trade tensions and slower population growth, potentially extending current market weakness. Construction industry capacity raises questions about recovery speed even if policy coordination improves. Skilled trades workers leaving the sector may not return quickly, creating labor constraints during potential recovery phases. Geographic concentration of declining markets suggests recovery may vary significantly across Ontario regions. Toronto area markets may require longer adjustment periods, while smaller markets could stabilize more quickly. The fundamental question remains whether current conditions represent temporary correction toward sustainable pricing or indicate deeper structural changes requiring systematic policy reform across multiple government levels. Ontario's housing data for October 2025 reveals systematic market breakdown across multiple indicators. Average provincial home prices declined 2.7% year-over-year to $828,896, making Ontario the only Canadian province recording annual price drops. New listings reached record September levels at 42,545 units, creating 5.2 months of inventory, nearly double historical averages. Major metropolitan areas lead declines, Brampton down 10.3%, Mississauga down 7.6%, Hamilton down 5.0%. Pre-construction sales collapsed 58% since 2021 to 35-year lows. Construction starts project 224,948 to 237,834 units in 2025, down from 245 and 367 in 2024. Government policy reversals, including rent control consultation cancellation after 23,000 constituent emails, demonstrate unprecedented political pressure. Industry coalition representing 1.2 million jobs declares housing emergency requiring immediate coordinated action. Federal CMHC forecasts 2% national price decline with steeper Ontario drops reflect official recognition of systematic breakdown requiring policy intervention beyond monetary stimulus to restore market function and economic stability. The long-term implications for Ontario's economy, housing 15 million residents and generating over $800 billion in annual GDP, extend far beyond real estate into fundamental questions about provincial economic competitiveness and social stability.